What does faith look like? When it leaves the comfort of the city and rides 5 long hours on a motorbike over broken paths and unforgiving terrain. What does sacrifice look like? When it crosses rivers, borders, mountains, not for adventure, but for souls. This is more than a journey. It's a story of hope, courage, faith, strength, and unshakable love. This is the Aaron and Hall Foundation journey. A journey to visit missionaries serving among some of the most unreached people in the northeast of Nigeria and beyond. On November 26, 2025, 3 members of the Aaron and Hall Foundation, Mr. Lanre Owolabi, Dorcas Asoba, and Wilson Lemene, gathered at Maraba Park in Abuja. Their destination? Their mission? To meet and encourage the missionaries laboring in one of the toughest, least reached regions of West Africa. They arrived in Gombe that evening and were briefed about the challenges ahead. But before the night ended, they met a man whose story reframed the entire journey. At 85 years old, Baba Sadi is still an unapologetic disciple of Christ. When he gave his life to Jesus, his family abandoned him. His home, his possessions, all gone. Yet, he did not turn back. Instead, he built a small hand cart fitted with a megaphone, and every day he walks from street to street, boldly preaching Christ. No fence, no fear, no regrets. His life reminded us while we were traveling. The next day, after several hours on the road, we arrived in Tongo at Damawa State, gateway to the People group. 2 missionaries were waiting for us with their motorbikes. From there, the real journey began. We rode 40 minutes through dusty paths to the remote village where the missionaries live, unfenced, exposed, surrounded by mountains and uncertainty. The locals are still cautious, unsure of their intentions, yet God sustains them. That evening, we shared a meal, prayed, and listened to their stories. Their endurance humbled us. We learned that the missionaries serve in 2 stations among the people. One in Nigeria near Tongo, the other across the border in the north region of Cameroon. Then came the surprise. We want you to visit the Cameroon station. At 5 a.m. the next morning, the team set out for Cameroon. 2 bikes, 2 missionaries, and the unknown. For 2 hours, we rode through rugged bush paths and crossed several rivers before reaching the border. After border formalities and a quick repair of 1 bike, the true test began. The road disappeared into wild terrain. We crossed the Cameroon Wildlife Game Reserve. We rode through valleys and over rocks, and we crossed the river on a wooden boat carrying people, goods, and our motorbikes. Over 3 hours after the border, exhausted and shaken, we finally arrived in a village near Alme. But the welcome made the journey worth it. Serving this remote station were Brother E.O. and his wife, Sister Bo, and with their 2 young children, and Brother J.H. When we met Ayuba, a courageous young man from the tribe, he met Christ through missionaries in Nigeria years ago. When he refused to renounce his faith, his family took away his wife and children. Isolated and persecuted, he moved to a distant relative in Cameroon and kept preaching. His testimony bettered new believers. The growth was so significant that the missionaries opened this second station 2 years ago to nurture the harvest. They now have a simple worship center, regular services, and a growing community of new disciples. The gospel is advancing quietly and steadily. But the challenges are harsh because the region is remote and far from Cameroon's major cities. Food is scarce. Most of their supplies still come from Nigeria. The community knows only grains. Food like yam are strange to them until the missionaries introduced it and planted small gardens to model it. Then there is the water problem. Drinking water is fetched from a distant Catholic church. Non-drinking water fetched from a stream over 1 kilometer away. A well is urgently needed. Yet, in the middle of these pressures, their faith remains unbroken. We prayed, we listened, we learned. We were reminded that missions is not convenience. Missions is sacrifice. The next morning, we began the long ride back to Nigeria. Over 5 punishing hours. We now knew every corner, every stone, every river, every hill. It was the toughest bike journey any of us have ever made. But one truth stayed with us on that road. If these missionaries can live here and give their lives every day, we can endure a few hours on a motorbike. Environmental restrictions slowed us down, but eventually we reached the station near Tongo safely. The next day, we began our return trip home. The missionaries gifted us from their harvest, including half a bag of white beans. A gift from their hearts. By Monday night, we were back in Abuja. By Tuesday, everyone had returned home. This was not tourism, not adventure, not a road trip. This was a revelation, a reminder that the gospel still moves through an 85-year-old man who refuses to deny Christ, through a persecuted young believer planting seeds of faith, through missionaries living unfenced in forgotten places, through 5-hour bike rides on unmotorable paths. This journey was not a few locations. It was a testimony that faith endures, sacrifice speaks,